Hello, welcome to this DCS A-10C2 tutorial. In this video, I'll be covering the basics of utilizing your guns, and then some more of the master mode control button functions. To begin with, you'll see our plane is currently in safe, and we will see safe in the lower left. So I'm going to go ahead and arm my plane, and then trim out for the arm position. If you recall from the previous video, arming your plane will affect your trim. So once I arm, I'm going to go ahead and trim out. Alright, now our plane is armed, and we have our guns, our combat mix with 1,150 rounds selected. Also shown here where it says guns. The weapons off signifies we don't have any weapon on our pylons currently selected. And we'll cover more of that when it comes to actually using munitions. With our guns selected, we will see CCIP invalid if we're pointed above the horizon. And that's telling us with our gun selected currently, we are in an air-to-ground gun mode. If I press my master mode control button, it will now say CCIP, that will disappear, and it will actually say weapons off because we don't have a weapon selected. If I click it again, it will say Ccrp, weapons off, because I don't have a weapon selected. And if I press it again, it will take me into a nav mode. Pressing it one more time will take me back to guns. So this is a useful way of swapping between your guns and your currently selected munition. I threw a practice bomb on here to demonstrate these master mode control functions. We won't be covering this until a later video, but just so you have an idea of what this means. So right now it has the practice bomb I have selected. If I press the master mode control button, it went to the Ccrp mode. If I press it again, it takes me to nav. If I press it again, it takes me back to guns. So this will cycle you between CCIP, CCRP for whatever munition you have selected, to nav, and then back to your guns. So if you see CM combat mix for the munitions on the plane, 1150 or however many rounds you have, and a CCIP invalid, that means you have your guns selected. You will also see guns up here and the combat mix highlighted down here with how much you actually have. So now if I switch back to the bomb, it has the bomb shown here, and it now says CCIP up here rather than guns. I can go to the CCRP mode, same thing. To nav, we'll see nav on our Dismas, and then back to guns. So you can easily tell what you have selected. This CCIP invalid is telling you that your guns currently do not have a calculated point of impact. CCIP is continuously computed impact point. So if I go ahead and pitch my nose down, our HUD symbology will change. We now have an aiming cue, represented by this double circle and two dots. This upper dot represents the armor-piercing rounds impact point, and the lower dot represents the high explosive round impact point. Because our combat mix has two separate types of ammunition, they both have two different ballistic trajectories. Below the circle, we have the range to the center of the targeting cross. If I pitch down as if I was going on an attack run and I get closer, you will see this inner circle start to tick down. Alright, when this starts to tick down, it is becoming more and more accurate for our gun fire location. So right here, it's going to be fairly accurate, but not completely. And then the closer we get to the end shows how accurate we will be. Just keep in mind that's generally making you get closer to the target. If I tried to fire my guns without that tick down at all, pitch down a little bit, that will mean it's not going to be accurate for these targeting dots. I'm going to have to calculate it in my head. I'll demonstrate that here in a second. if you recall back to our air-to-air video, we could change our air-to-air targeting symbology with our HUD as sensor of interest by pressing DMS right, display management switch right. We can do the same thing here. So with HUD as soy, DMS right, we'll change it to a cross. DMS right again, we'll change it to a circle with 3 dots. Changing it back, we'll put it to a fixed bore sight. And then DMS right again will take me back to the standard CCIP cross circle. This is generally what you're going to use because this will help your plane calculate your trajectory for your bullets to make it more accurate. If you utilize any of these other modes, it's up to you to calculate the trajectory of your shots in your head. So when you can, just keep it in this circle view. Alrighty, now that we have some symbology out of the way, let's talk about our gun pack. Your gun pack, during startup, we put to the arm position, and this is a stabilization system for your plane for when you're utilizing your cannon. So with the gun pack in the arm position, if I put the crosshair over a target I want to shoot, and then pull my trigger to the first detent, it's going to try and lock the plane where it is. So if I'm moving my stick, it's going to want to try and bring me back to where I activated the first detent. And if I let go, it turns off the gun pack and I can fly around normally. I'll do that one more time. So say I put it over a target, gun pack, it's going to try and lock me there. So I can do small corrections with my rudder or my stick, but it will try to always bring me back to wherever I activated my gun pack. If you do not have a 2-stage trigger and you only have the 2nd stage bound, that's no big deal. You can bind it to a separate button or just not utilize it at all. Oftentimes, I'll actually deactivate my gun pack by moving it to the down gun arm position. And now, when I go to use my guns, it will not lock my targeting cursor, giving me a bit more freedom as I'm operating. This is helpful for if you want to fire on one target and then sweep across to another, which I'll go ahead and start demonstrating now. I'll demonstrate a run with the gun pack and a run without the gun pack. Throw myself in maneuver flaps for some tighter turns. And I'll just practice over here on some airport vehicles. Don't need to do anything fancy. So I can see some airport vehicles out there, and I'll go in. Just remember, when you're coming in, you can start relatively low and then do kind of a drag shot across. You can start in high and do a dive bomb. They'll both affect your accuracy differently and how you're going to actually utilize your guns, but you can experiment with each method and then see what you like most for the situation. They're all valid approaches. Alright, there's some targets out here. This first dot, remember, is our armor piercing, and the second dot is our high explosive. As we get closer, the dots will start to converge. So I'll put the dot over the target. Gun pack is armed. I'll go ahead and pull my trigger now that the inner circle is counting down. And you see the shots are hitting around the target. I can utilize the high explosive cursor. And it's just as easy as that. So that was with the gun pack, locking my targeting cursor to wherever I activated the detent. Now I'll turn my gun pack off and just put it to the gun arm position on the switch. Let's try and get his buddy. So there's a vehicle there. Put my cursor over a target. Quick little burst. And down he goes. So you saw the closer we are, these two dots are going to converge, and that way you can hit a target with both. If they're a bit further out, they'll start to diverge from each other, and you'll have to choose which one you want to use. Or you can start firing with the armor piercing dot, and then drag your plane up, pull up through it, and hit it with the high explosive rounds. Just keep in mind that you're going to be using more ammo doing a method like that because you're ending up wasting ammunition on the ground behind the target. Alright, that's all pretty easy and fine and dandy for things that aren't going to shoot at you. So I'm going to fly over to a mission area with a whole bunch of actual targets, and then demonstrate some gun runs over there and different ways you can engage. You can use this as an example. I'll pause it here and be back with you in just a second. Alrighty, so I'm approaching an airfield with some targets. They're going to be down there. I'm going to prep myself for some gun runs. So my preferred method is to keep my flaps in the maneuver position so I can turn a bit more agilely. And if I'm engaging multiple targets or I'm shooting in a dynamic environment, I'll actually have my gun pack turned off so it doesn't lock my plane when I pull my trigger.
Warning, autopilot.
If you're trying to shoot at a fixed target or something that you know you won't have to be maneuvering a whole lot, you can go ahead and leave your gun pack on to lock your plane if you're utilizing a first detent. But for this, I'll keep it off. Alright, I'm going to dive in, get some speed, as these things can shoot back, and I don't want to get shot down. This A-10 can take a beating, so I'll probably get shot some, hopefully not enough to actually take me out of the sky. So there's a group of targets. I'll work on these guys out here. And remember, we can utilize either dot on the targeting HUD. The top one is the armor piercing, the bottom is the high explosive. And I'll clear out some of these labels to make things easier to see. I'll also move my seat down some, just so I can still see the bottom of my HUD. Alright, my targeting circle is starting to tick down, so I know my gun's going to be fairly accurate. Fire some shots with the high explosives on that guy, on that guy, on that guy, on that guy.
Altitude.
Just like that, a whole bunch of destroyed targets. I was able to do that easily, keeping my gun pack off and letting me maneuver my plane around. I'm going to turn off, make sure I'm always moving or turning to make sure they can't shoot me. And I'm actually going to go up and then turn and dive back in for the next attack, finding a target I want to engage as I go. So there's a guy.
Pull up.
Put some shots on him.
Altitude.
Put some shots on him. And then make sure I'm always moving to make it harder for an enemy to shoot at me. Alright, those were some gun pack off. I'll turn gun pack on, and you'll see how it's a little bit easier to maintain a target, your targeting crosshair on the actual vehicle you want to engage, because it will end up locking your plane wherever you engage that first detent. So here I didn't pop all the way up. I'm going for kind of a drag-in shot. Put my targeting cursor over it, activate my gun pack and it locks it on, move it to the next, gun pack, shoot, next, gun pack, shoot. And you can engage all kinds of targets in all different kinds of manners. It just comes down to your preference for the situation and what you feel most comfortable with. I'll come up this time and I'll do another dive attack. And then remember, utilizing your rudders while you're doing these gun runs can help you correct left and right.
Altitude. Pull up.
Turn off my gun pack again so I can be a little bit more maneuverable as I fire. And I'll try and do one long burst, dragging the shot all the way across some targets.
Pull up.
Just keep in mind if you're in an engagement area where they're shooting back at you, don't be consistent with your movements. Always be moving around so that they are not able to as easily shoot at you.
Pull up. Pull up.
So, long burst, you saw me drag those shots across some targets. They ended up shooting out my targeting pod. That's why you see TGP not ready now.
Pull up. Pull up.
And you can get pretty aggressive with your techniques. Just keep in mind, when you see those X's appear on your HUD, that was your plane telling you that you now have the ability to hit yourself with your own fragmentations from your rounds. So keep that in mind. Come in again on these guys.
Pull up. Pull up. Altitude. Altitude. Pull up. Pull up.
See that X right there? Was the plane telling me I could end up fragging myself with my own shots. Alright, that's a pretty decent example of how to utilize your guns in a few different situations and methods. Thanks for watching.